What's up, guys? It's Kyle from Keystone Production Network, and today on Keystone Academy, we're going to be teaching you how to create lower third motion graphics using Premiere and Illustrator. Now, usually I would recommend creating lower thirds or any really motion graphics using After Effects, but today we're going to keep it simple and we're just going to stick with Premiere. Now, the reason why I say I would usually recommend using After Effects is because After Effects for motion graphics is overall just a better program. And the way you can export it as a QuickTime file with a transparent background that you can then bring into Premiere, which is great, especially if you're trying to create reusable templates. But since we're just doing a demo today, and like I said, I want to keep it simple, I think we're just going to stick with Illustrator and Premiere. So let's get started. All right, so I'm in Illustrator and I'm gonna just go up here and we're gonna call this Keystone, oh, I can't spell, Keystone lower third. And I'm gonna change this to pixels, and I wanna create a artboard that's 1920 by 1080 because that's the size that I'm going to be editing my video in. So we want this to be landscape orientation. All these other settings I believe are good to go. So we'll just go ahead and click create. And it's opened up a new artboard for me. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And what we want to do is we just want to create a basic shape, something that we can use down here in this corner as a lower third, so that when I'm talking, we can say what the topic is, what my name is, my position, any sort of information that you want to create a lower third for. So I'm going to go into my file explorer here, and I have a logo that I can use for reference when I'm doing my colors. So I'm going to decrease the size of this, and I'm going to hold shift to do it so that I keep the proportions of the logo. And we're just going to make this super simple. So I'm going to go over here to my left side with my tools. I'm going to click on my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to click and drag and create a nice even looking rectangle, not over the whole screen, maybe a little over half of the screen. So a little something like that. And you'll notice that this is currently white with, it looks like, a black stroke. So we are going to want to change that. We want to make this the Keystone Production Network colors. So if I click on my stroke here and then I click none, it's going to clear that stroke. We don't want one on this. And then for my fill, what I want to do is use one of these primary colors. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the top layer, I'm going to make it this dark color. That way I can put white text over it. I'm a big fan of dark backgrounds and white text. I think light backgrounds and dark text is a little harder to read and a little too in your face. So what I'm going to do with this fill clicked on, want to make sure I'm not clicked on the stroke, click on the fill. I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool, and then I'm going to go over to my logo and click this blue. And as you can see over here, it's changed to blue, and my rectangle has changed as well. And then I will go to create another rectangle. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this one a little bit bigger than the last one. And as you can see, it's retained the same color as my previous rectangle, which we don't want. So I'm going to go back to my eyedropper tool, and we're going to make this light blue. Now, as you can see, my light blue rectangle is covering my dark blue rectangle. So in order to kind of fix that, what I'm going to do is go over here to my layers. And as you can see, my two rectangles right here, I'm just going to click the blue one and drag it below the dark blue one. Excuse me, I'm going to drag the light blue one below the dark blue one. And then I'm going to go over here. And just because this is off the artboard, we don't need this excess, I'm just going to click and drag this to line it up. So this is what our lower third would look like. Now we want to make sure this is even, so I'm going to click this rectangle, the one on top, and I'm just going to drag it until it snaps to the center and make sure that that's well aligned there. So this is a pretty simple look. And of course you can change this as much as you want and do a little something extra with it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this because we don't need this anymore. So I will click that and hit delete. And then what we can do from here, just to kind of spice it up a little bit, let's say we want to add like a little angle to it. I'm going to go over to my direct selection tool, and I'm going to click on this top shape. Now what I can do is I can click on an anchor point and I can adjust it. So let's say I want it to have a little angle right here, maybe nothing too dramatic, something like that. And then I'll click on my light blue rectangle. Oops. I want to make sure that I'm clicked on this anchor point only. It'll turn dark blue and the rest of them will be this hollow white. So now I'm going to click and drag this over as well. And we want it to be, we want this outside to be the same kind of thickness as the rest of it. So I'm going to click over here, drag, and just kind of get it so it looks even. So maybe about right there. And there we go. We add a little bit of flair to it. Still a pretty simple lower third, but I think this will do just fine. So now that I've got my lower third created, I want to go ahead and click File, go to Export, Export As. And then I'm going to go into where I want to save it. Go into my demo here. Keystone lower third, we'll call it demo. And as a file type, I want to save this as a PNG. So I'll click Export, and you can see it adds this little transparent texture behind it so that we know that this is all we will be getting in our PNG. And then I'm going to just go ahead and click OK. All right, so now we are over into Premiere, and I just used a little piece of the outro, found the most flattering frame of myself I could find, and I brought in my lower third as well. So I'm just going to click and drag this on the layer above my face here. So as you can see, because of the way it exported, it just put it right in the center of the screen. So what we're going to want to do is we actually want to go to our effect controls, which I am in assembly right now. So I'm going to go to Window, and then I am going to toggle on effect controls, and that will add it over here. And I just want to reposition this. So I'm going to lower it and slide it over so it is butted up against the edge there. And then what we want to do is we just want to add our text. So before we add any motion, let's just go ahead and throw some text on there. So I'm just going to click my type tool. I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to write how to make a lower third. Pretty original, if I do say so myself. And then I'm going to go over here into my effect controls under graphics. You see my little text right here. If I twirl down this little arrow, now I can select all of my fun little features of the text. So let's pick a cool font. Let's see. What do we want to do? That looks pretty clean. Yeah, nice and simple. Okay, so I want to scale this down a little bit, but I actually don't want to scale it. I'm just changing the font size here. So let's make this maybe 80. And then down here is where I want to position it. I don't actually want to reposition the video layer itself. I just want to reposition the text within the video layer. So there we go. Obviously pretty simple. What we can do is we can add another line to it if we want. A lot of times in lower thirds, it'll be a name and a title. So just to kind of demonstrate that and kind of give it a better look, we'll put a video by Keystone Production Network. All right, and then because this is a bottom line, I'm going to size this down quite a bit, make it fit, look all nice and tidy there. And yeah, pretty straightforward. And what we can do too, a lot of times I like to do this, I'll actually italicize this bottom line here, so it makes it look a little cleaner. So now what we want to do is we want to add a little bit of motion to this. We want it to be a little more than just a lower third. We don't just want this to pop in there. So something really simple that you can do with this is just slide it into place. So I'm going to click on my lower third here, and what I want to do is I'm going to create a keyframe for the position that it's currently in. And then I'm going to scrub forward a little bit. Let's say we want this transition to last 10 seconds, or excuse me, 10 frames. So I'll scrub forward 10 frames, and then I'm just going to slide this keyframe over. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning of my video, and I'm going to create another keyframe. Now at that keyframe, I want this to be off the screen because we're going to have it slide in over the course of those 10 frames. And then we will scrub even further. We'll go towards the end, and then I'm basically just going to duplicate these because I want it to slide back off. So what was my first frame, or my first keyframe, I should say, is having it off the screen. So that's where we want it at the very end. So I could slide it back off, but to make my life easier, I'm just going to click on this first keyframe, click Control C to copy it, and then Control V to paste it back over here. And now I want to go 10 frames back. So we'll go to 4 seconds and 12 frames. I'll hit enter. And I'm going to do the same thing with this second keyframe. So Control C, Control V, and there we go. Now, obviously, we don't want our text to be there the whole time. So we can have it fade in, we can have it slide in with the graphic, whatever we want to do. I think sliding it in with the graphic is a pretty clean look. Either way, it's just fine. So just to change it up a little bit, once this comes in, we'll give it another, let's say 5 frames. So we'll go to 15 frames, and then we'll have it fade in. So I'm just going to do a default transition, which I have as a cross dissolve. I'll right click on it, set transition duration, and I'm just going to make this fade in over another 10 frames. We will hit enter, and then we want to do this the same on the back end. So clicking these so that when I click my arrows, it'll actually jump to the ends of my graphics here. So we're at 4 seconds and 29 frames here. So I want to back up 5 frames. Oh no, excuse me, because we want to go to the point where this has already come in. So right about here. Then we'll go 5 frames back. Bring this in, add my default transition, and take it down to 10 frames. Now let's play that back. So a pretty clean look, a pretty simple graphic. And I think this is something that really just adds a lot to videos. It adds a lot to talking heads, interviews, anything where you're seeing somebody sit there and you want to introduce who the person is without having to verbally say it. And that's it for this episode of Keystone Academy. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button if you learned a little something today. And if you haven't already, you should subscribe. We make some pretty cool stuff. See you next time.